Who would have ever thought the day was coming when Ram would not be using the Cummins again? There was an article last month discussing Ram killing off the Cummins. Now, I didn't believe it, but it does seem very, very, very possible. Now, when I say they're killing off the Cummins, they're not killing off both of them. They're killing off the one. Can you guess which one it is? This one. This is the standard output Cummins. So for 2025, there is possibly going to be an exit of 2 Cummins. Now, Ford has pretty much decided they're going to copy Ram and do 2. And Ram's like, nah, I don't want to be like you, Ford. I want to be different. So they're going away from 2 potentially. Now, how do you know the high output from the standard output? Well, the one way you can tell is the transmission. So on this side, you would see a dipstick for the Aisin, but because this is a 68 RF, you guys can see right here, that is the dipstick, which means this is a 68 RF, and without even guessing, this is a 2500. So yeah, it's definitely the standard output. And just to confirm what I said, see the dipstick? That's for the Aisin. It's on the driver's side. Now, why would Ram decide to kill off the standard output Cummins? I'll tell you why. It's because they're probably, sadly, going to be killing off the Aisin. That is very, very bad news for medium duty trucks, for sure. I personally like the Aisin transmission. Now, based off how I use my trucks, I probably would get the 68 RF. If I was deciding to get another Ram truck and I was looking for one of these models, I would actually be okay with getting a 68 RF. The reason why is because I don't tow as much as I did in the past. Although I still do tow. I probably still tow about 30-40% because my GMC has, I think, almost 4,000 or 5,000 miles of just towing, and it has like 9,000 miles total on the truck. Now, with that being said, the Powerline from ZF seems to be the next iteration for the Ram HD pickups. This is the article from moparinsiders.com, and down below here you guys will see they did a write-up. I want to say they were the first ones to break the story on the Powerline. Now, if you read here, it's talking about the rating for that transmission is only 1,000 pound-feet of torque, and then they kind of discuss how this is for a pretty big truck, basically with a 57,000 pound gross combined weight rating. And down below, they might be working with ZF to create their own transmission. It's going to be 8-speed, and then that should help them get to the higher torque capacity handling there, and of course horsepower. But what are you guys' thoughts? I think that Ram definitely has a great opportunity to really get back in first place with this new powertrain, so we'll have to wait and see what they do. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are excited about the Powerline. 8 speeds, so they're going 2 more gears, and yes, that's all great news, right? But here's my problem. The Powerline is basically a medium duty transmission. We've already learned that the Aisin transmission is not a great transmission unloaded. It's a phenomenal, and I mean phenomenal, transmission towing. And I don't mind the 6 speeds, and like I said earlier, for most guys, I think when they do a 2025 Ram HD, I hope that they keep the Aisin around, and I'll discuss that here in a second. But let's move on. Let's talk about the 68 RF for a second. This is Chrysler's in-house transmission. I'm going to climb under here if I can to show you what we're talking about. So you can kind of see that transmission there. It's really small in comparison if I show you guys the Aisin, right? So the 68 RF is a 6-speed transmission. Ram's been using this transmission, I think, since 2007, I believe. I could be wrong, but it's been a long time that they've been using this transmission. And here's why they use it for the 2500 platform. It's the weight. Now, if you think about the weight of this transmission, you ready for this? The 68 RF weighs 263 pounds. That is very light. I believe that is wet too, by the way. Now, first gear in this transmission is going to be a 323 to 1. Final gear is a 0.63 to 1. So when you think about gearing, 323 is pretty dang deep. Let's talk about the Aisin. The reason why you don't see this high output Cummins and Aisin configuration in that 3/4 ton is because Ram is still using that 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating, and therefore every pound counts. This Aisin transmission weighs, and I believe this is wet, 400 pounds. I believe it might be 450 wet, but let's just say 400 for the sake of argument. That is pretty dang heavy. Now, as far as the gearing, first gear in this transmission is a 375 to 1, and final gear is the exact same as this 68 RV, 0.63 to 1 ratio. Now, if you're looking at a dually, there is an optional 410, but it would come standard with a 373. If you get a single rear wheel 1 ton like this one with the Cummins, whether it be the high output or standard output, same goes for this standard output 3/4 ton, you only can get the 373 rear. All right, let's talk about the Powerline now. The Powerline is going to be a macho man when it comes down to that first gear. First gear in the ZF Powerline is going to be a 489 to 1. So you're going from the high output, which is pretty dang good, 375 to 1 for first gear, all the way to a 489. Now Ford and GM, I think Ford might be in the 47 or 469. I think GM is not far behind on that first gear. So they have some deep gears in that 10-speed transmission. The 10L1000 is the Chevy and GMC's, and Ford's is the 10R140 transmission. It's a 10-speed. So yes, with the Powerline, you're going to get a really deep first gear. Now the final drive is going to go to a 0.64 to 1 ratio. The weight of that transmission is showing 375 pounds. So when you think about it, that's why Ram can get rid of the Aisin and the 68 RV and get rid of the standard output Cummins, because the weight will not be a factor. Now I'm going to choke someone at Ram if they do not raise that daggone GVWR to at least 10.8. If 10.4 would be fine, but 10.8 would give them 800 more pounds of payload capacity, especially if they find a way to lighten the truck altogether. But having a lighter transmission is going to help, and so that's why the Powerline is a good idea. Now I do think Ram would be making a big mistake if they do not keep the Aisin around in the medium duty trucks like the 4500 and 5500. 100%. I would even like to see them keep it around in these trucks. If someone's looking for reliability on that first model year and just want the new interior, I can understand them picking the Aisin, and a lot of guys will pick the Aisin for sure. But the Powerline being brand new, it's going to have some quirks. It's always going to happen, and there's going to be some drivability issues. That's how it works, whether you buy a Toyota or a Ram. It doesn't matter. They're all going to have problems within the first model year. So I really think that Ram has a great opportunity here to bring their A game with this new Cummins idea. Now, if this is true, I think this is some great news. Having two diesels never really made sense to me. I mean, I get that some people don't need the power, but at the end of the day, having one just makes it a lot easier when you're shopping for trucks, whether it be brand new or used. Here's one of my biggest questions about this update. Are they gonna go back to higher gearing out back? I had a 2018 Ram 2500. That truck had a 342 rear end. I will admit, that truck was sluggish towing. I think the 342 was such a bad idea, and I wish they would have offered a 373 in that time frame for sure. Now I hope they do that with the Powerline. I hope that they do what Ford does. Ford has higher gearing, so it comes out with a 331 and you can get a 355. So anyone that wants to run taller tires can choose a slightly lower gear for those taller tires. So if you want to go 37s, well, you don't really change that gearing so much out back, right? But having that deep first and second and third gear, you don't really need the lower gearing out back anymore, because the transmission does a lot of the work for you. The steps are closer in the transmission because you're going from a 6-speed to an 8-speed. So there's a lot of great advantages. Now, one thing I always hated about the Aisin, and you guys have seen my videos, I've done 0 to 60 tests showing you guys that the 68 RV will beat the Aisin every single time off the line. Unless you brake boost it, maybe the Aisin might jump out in front of it, but even though the truck has 850 pound-feet of torque compared to 1,075 and 370 horsepower compared to 420, that truck is faster because there's not as much torque management. The reason why the Aisin has so much torque management is when it's unloaded, speed will damage that transmission because it's a medium duty transmission. Medium duty trucks are always heavy. Those trucks out of the gate can be 15 to 20,000 pounds, right? So it's always under load. So you can't accelerate fast, right, out of the gate. Whereas for the Ford and GM trucks, they have that really strong acceleration right off the line. They beat this truck unloaded by 2 seconds in some cases. So when I say the Powerline has to bring their A game, they really do. Now, I did a video saying I was hoping that Ram would consider maybe doing an 8-speed Aisin transmission, because there is a heavy-duty transmission in their arsenal. Now, they would probably have to do some R&D and make it up to par to handle whatever power numbers that Ram's going to do. But I really hope to see a Aisin for at least a couple years if they do plan on killing off the AS69RC in this truck. But the 68 RP, despite what people say about it, I know that transmission is going away, and it is what it is. I'm not gonna cry about it. It's not that big of a deal. But I really hope they can somehow find a way to have 2 transmission options and have all the power and torque that you would want out of the Cummins. That will pretty much end the video. Be sure to write a comment down below. I want to read you guys' comments on this topic. I'm pretty sure someone's going to say this video was clickbait. I'm willing to bet that's going to be one of the comments. So, as opposed to me wasting my time to respond to that, here you go.
Got him! Got him!